like, well, Kathy, thank you, and all those countries she said that I've been to. I hope you don't think I was a visitor, a traveler, or a tourist. I went in those countries out of my choice. You know, so it was not a choice like, oh, I'm going to travel this place and that place. It's actually inspiring. You know, my whole life I've been striving for peace, like looking for a place where I feel safe, comfortable. You know, just a place where I'll have the same right like every other human being. You know, sleep, wake up, go to work, and come back without fear or without being persecuted. And so all those countries, from one country to another, it was just an attempt to finding that perfect place. So when I'm here, I'm like, oh my God, in Zimbabwe things are better. They're treating refugees better. They're giving them a little more food than they give you guys here. I'll run to Zimbabwe just to get that little extra food because I'm not getting enough here to survive on. So when I get to Zimbabwe, I'm like, oh my God, if you run to Botswana, they actually allowing refugees, they're giving them mattresses and blankets and stuff. So I'm like, I'm sleeping on the floor here. Over there, maybe getting mattresses and stuff. So I will run up there just for the sake of having that chance to sleep on a mattress. Oh, go to South Africa. It's like, oh, it's freedom actually there. If you get there, you can get a job. You can start working and finding a way to live. So I ran to South Africa because I heard that there is a way to work. And I arrived there. I slept on the street for a while, but as time went on, I found a little job selling bananas on the streets and cosmetic. And it felt better than hanging out in a refugee camp in Zimbabwe or playing soccer with the Bushmen in Botswana in the desert. You know, it gives, everywhere you go is just for that chance to have a life better than the one you have, the safety that you strive for. And that's what we live for. You know, we are all prisoners of that, of our feelings. You know, we're striving and fighting for emotions. We don't live for anything else. We want to have that peaceful mind every day. We want to, every time we go to work, we go to church, we go to school, we want to be greater than we are so that we can satisfy our emotions. That you feel safe, you feel comfortable, you feel accomplished, you feel happy. So it's all feelings and emotions that we work for. But unfortunately, it all never gets better. It always gets a little worse, but then changes into a little happiness. And for some people, it's a long stretch of bad feelings, and then one night of great feelings. Like when I was traveling from Tanzania into Zimbabwe, I walked for weeks and weeks in the bushes, and finally I found a lift in a truck. I jumped in the back of a truck, and there was a mattress and a blanket, and I covered myself, and for those 8 hours that the truck drove, I had happy dreams, only to be woken by the police again, poking me and yelling at me and kicking me up again. So you get those few hours of happiness and then move on. But those keeps us going because then we know maybe there's still another hour of happiness out there. Maybe that one may last longer. Maybe it may be longer than the one I had in the Congo. Maybe it will be longer than the one I had in Zimbabwe. We keep hoping that the one time, the happiness will grasp will be longer, it will last longer than the one we had last, or the one we lost. Now, I like to start with a lot of poetry and stuff, and just a couple of weeks ago I was with my family floating the river, and we had a little accident up there. It was scary and stuff. Well, I've seen death several times, and as you'll get to know. And well, it never freaked me out because it always gives me the strength to come up and fight it. So I'm kind of a fighter. So it never scared me. But when I had the accident with the river, I actually was scared because it was not just me involved. It was my family involved. So I was not scared for me, but I was scared for them. And that's how I live. I kind of live for others. And what I do, what happens to me never hurts me so much because I always know that there's a way out. And if I'm gone, then that means that was the moment that I was selected to be gone, but at least I've left something behind. So what we do to others have to matter a lot more than what we do for ourselves because they're the ones that judge us. The happiness we absorb comes from other people around us. So if I see all of you happy and dancing, I'll be dancing too. But if all of you are sad, I'll be actually sitting happy and mopping. I can't be jumping along while all of you are sad. So we have to make sure we put happiness in others because that's what feeds our own feelings of happiness. So when that accident happened at the river last week, I actually wrote a poem and I was pressing the kids and stuff. And I said, oh, maybe I should share it with you guys tonight. It was actually last week when I wrote it, so I haven't even mastered it in there, but I'm like, oh, maybe you guys need to hear it. And it's called The Place of Peace. And it says, if I can find a place of truth that goes out with standing there whispering my children's future. I'd let their future dwell in my past so that I might live brighter now. Now is the best time I'll ever have because I am that refugee. That refugee. I am that timeless refugee that ran through minefields in search of a safe haven for my children's future. It was me. It was me who was incarcerated in a tiny cell for days with no hope of survival. But faith never departed my soul. I am that refugee. That refugee means fortitude and after death. Here I overcame it, so they named me after it. And I'll be speaking truth to power, bringing light to darkness, leaving my shame behind my back because I am not a son of a cursed man. I am a conqueror, running on the wings of eternity, hoping that time will leave my dreams undisturbed, as I was reliving the nightmares of the days that brought me here. Death is not the greatest tragedy. Being bound by the traumatic experiences of our past is. Having dreams of the days that I almost lost my children to the Boise waters, my mind flipped like Moses contemplating of ways of flying back in history. Rise my stick over the waters to create a pathway for my family. I paused. My past will forever hold the light to my children's footsteps. They will never step on an unstable rock again because it's me. I am that refugee. The refugee that lived in tent and desert in search of a world that my children may bequeath tomorrow. And I am not ashamed of it. My past may stay with me, but my children will never leave it again because I am a conqueror. I abolished it. Again and again, death will try to visit me. But as I've cheated it 7 times 7, light will eventually shine through the darkness because I am that timeless refugee. The refugee that sacrifices future for the world. In my world, ignorance will never prevail again. Cruelty will never be rewarded. The world my children will bequeath will be the world that will never be overrun by ignorant thinking, but a world where mothers will outlive their sons and daughters. I am that refugee. I was thinking, every time I stand in front of people trying to look at me, and I'm like, people, you have to see through me, right? Look past me, look past the American side of me that I've become, right? Look past the parents that I've become. I want you to see me from the years back, right? I want you to see me. When you see me, I want you to see a 12-year-old trying to locate his family after the war. When you see me, I want you to see a Congolese man who's mourning the lives of 10 million Congolese that have died in the past 10, 12, 13 years of the conflict. I want you to see past me. I want you to see me as a homeless refugee, a mentally ill man, a traumatized person, destroyed man, an orphan, wounded, imprisoned, tortured, abused, discriminated, abandoned, and left for dead by humanity. I want you to see me as a refugee. But relatively, I want you to see what's inside of me. Despite all of that I am, I want you to see what lives in me. I want you to see the courage, the hope, the endurance, fortitude, perseverance, faith, hope, ambition, mercy, fearlessness, compassion, tolerance, forgiveness. I want you to see how I have lived my life by shining the light on the name refugees other than the name of those that oppress them. I want you to see how I have spoken of ways to help the oppressed other than uplifting the name of the oppressors. I want you to see how I have forgiven those that have wronged me, to allow myself the strength to share my hateful past with the world. I want you to believe me when I tell you that to achieve self-liberation, we have to open doors for forgiveness and love, and not revenge and violence. See, when I share my story, I usually remind people not to be sorry for me, not to feel compassion for whatever I've gone through. Everything that I went through, it was a way to be where I am today. So it never faced me. Don't look at me and say, oh my God, that person suffered. I want you to see the courage in my story. I want you to see the fight that I put through. I want you to see the world that I overturned to be here today. I want you to see what you can do with your own story, and not to be sorry for me, not to be overwhelmed by what I've gone and start being scared for others, but to change your own life and fight for others. And that's why I tell my stories. Now, it all started when I was 12 years old, but I've lived a beautiful life with my family way before that. And when I was 12, everything was changed by evil men. Ignorant leaders, they believe in wars, and they use us as bait. So if somebody hates your country or hates your president, they'll have to kill the citizens, the innocents, to get back to whoever they're trying to hurt. So if they want to hurt Obama, oh yeah, let's kill some Americans. They want to hurt Kabila, oh let's kill some Congolese. So we are the bait. So that's how we live. They think we live our lives. And we are here to try to strive and fight that and change the world, bring the world that our children have to live in. Now, at 12, the war started. I was at school, and I had to run on my way. I went home. My whole family was gone. And my journey started from there. I ran to the church, and everybody was killed at the church. I survived, and we were thrown in a bus and sent to another city. We became homeless for a year, and the war broke out again. They started shooting everybody, and we escaped again. I fought my way through the bushes of Burundi and fought my way through the waters of Tanzania and Zambia and found myself in Zimbabwe. And life was better again. It doesn't matter how many times they tried to kill me. I found my way out. Well, it's never our way, because my ability, yes, I had to fight my strength. Our attitude and our ability always help us to get through whatever we're fighting for. But there is also a little bit of faith and hope, God, for those that believe in God, and God always with you too. But you gotta have that positive thinking, like Peter when he was walking on top of the water, they say he kind of lost faith a little bit and started sinking. So that's the same thing when you're running from war. Once you give up, then a bullet will catch you. But if you believe that you have to survive, then you will survive. And so whenever you see people who have survived things, never ask them, what were you thinking, or how did you find the courage to endure? Because it's not about what we're thinking. People think about, I want to get away. I'm not dying today. And that's the attitude that gets you out. Not like, oh my God, I'm scared. You can't be scared during that time. So I fought my own way. I'll never be scared during that time. I know I'll survive. I just wanted to survive long enough to be able to leave something behind. And that's what I'm doing right now. So I found myself in Zimbabwe, and life was okay in Zimbabwe. I became a refugee the first 7 months, like everybody else. I struggled, thinking too much, missing my family, trying to find them, but I couldn't. I was thousands of miles away from them. No cell phones, no internet during that time of the world. And life went on. I believed, I finally convinced myself that I was an orphan, and continued my life without my family. But then, Zimbabwe was a different story, and things changed up there too. The conflict started in Zimbabwe, and the Mugabe wanted to change things up there. And I was, as a refugee in Zimbabwe, we were affected by his policies and stuff, and people hated us. So the same attitude that I had now built throughout my life of fighting for my life and fighting for the life of others kind of rose. And together with another 73 refugees, we stood up and started fighting for the freedom of every other refugee that was in there, that was at risk. And that action kind of cost us a lot, because all 73 of us were arrested by the government. I escaped. My friends were thrown in prison. After a year of imprisonment, they were all deported back to their countries. I became a fugitive, and I found myself in Botswana in the desert of Kalahari. Now, a most wanted man in Zimbabwe, now living in the desert of Kalahari. Life was horrible up there. Went to South Africa, where I struggled a little bit again. Found my way back to Angola to try to find a better life. It didn't work out. We got robbed, and everything was taken away. So I went back to Zimbabwe, where I was arrested, thrown in prison. And then the case started again that, oh, that's the man who was accused of trying to assassinate the president. That was their case. They said that we were plotting to assassinate the president of Zimbabwe. So I was arrested in there. The United Nations came and fought and argued with them. I was released. And when I was released, I was given a chance by the UN to go to apologize. I tried, they didn't agree. But during all this time, I had faith in me. I never sat down and said I surrender. I fought for my right because I knew I had rights. I knew my rights were much stronger than all their lives as they stand there judging me. Because whatever they were living for was completely different from whatever I believe in, whatever I was living for. I was living for my life. I was living for the lives of every other refugee that was oppressed. I was living for the lives of the oppressed. And they were standing there judging us and killing us and using us as better examples for their own agendas. So that's the two different worlds we live in. And we have to create our own world and environment, and that's what we're here for. If you're a good person, you have your children, you have your wife, you have your family, your extended family, you want to inflict that little bit of love into them. You don't want to see them do things that you wouldn't do. So you create your own environment, and that's your world. And every now and then you step out of your world and see the evil that's out there. And once you realize it, you have to step back into your world or try to find a way to inflict your good sense into the outside world that you see that's not good enough. And that's what we see every day. And, we see what's happening with the world today. And I thought people ask me and say, what do you think about what's happening in the Middle East, in Syria, and whatever and stuff? People are cutting people's heads and stuff. And I'm like, well, I know I hate the violence of it. But I can't react to that violence like it's happening today. Because I've seen it 10 years back. I've seen it 20 years ago. It's been happening in Congo and in a lot of countries in Africa. Now, so when I see it, I fight it just as I fought the one in the Congo. But what makes maybe this one a little different from the one that I've been fighting is because this one, it's trying to influence my world. So when they do it and bring it into my world and post it on Facebook for the whole world to see, then my children may see it and start thinking that this is the ways of life. When I've been trying to shield them from all these things, even though they existed. So these things existed ways but long ago, but people are reacting like it's something new because we've tried our best to keep them out of our world. But now it's coming inside, and that's why I'm like, no, this can't happen. This is what we have to fight. Keep it outside. Let's fight the enemy from outside of our own world. We can't let them come and disrupt the peace that we've enjoyed in our own little circle. And that's what's been happening. So in Zimbabwe, I'll come back in a little story of Zimbabwe. When I was arrested in Zimbabwe, when I went back in Zimbabwe, when I was arrested, accused of trying to assassinate the president, which was on the front page of the newspaper. The UN came and fought and get me out. And we started negotiating with these people and trying to find a way to get me out, get me out of trouble, get me some documentation to leave. But the Zimbabwean government said, you can't live here. We have to find him, get him out, or we'll kill him if we find him again. And the UN did not have a place to send me. So they failed to protect me, and I found myself again kidnapped by the secret service of the country, thrown in a little cell and tortured for about a week. And after a week of torture, they took me and they drove me out of the country into the bushes of Mozambique and started contemplating killing me. They told me to close my eyes, they play with the guns and cock and stuff, and then finally they told me to close my eyes and start walking forward, which I did. And as I was walking, I tripped and fell down. And after that, I don't know what happened next. The next morning, I had some park rangers walk me up, picked me up, and took me up in a little station. And that's when I realized that I was in Mozambique. But the park rangers told me I was left in the landmines field. So those guys knew that I was going to get blown any second, so they didn't have to shoot me. They wanted to play a game and let me go. Now, in Mozambique, where I was thrown, I thought I was finally safe. And they gave me water and stuff as they interviewed me. But after the interview, they did not believe me. They also called me a criminal. They said I was crossing the border illegally and got stuck up there. So they arrested me there too. And after a while, because we couldn't communicate, I spoke different languages and they spoke Portuguese. I couldn't speak Portuguese. But because they lived by the border, we communicated using the Zimbabwean language because I could speak it. I lived there. And they thought I was Zimbabwean just because I used the language. So they deported me back to Zimbabwe in the hands of the people that wanted to kill me. And at the border where they dropped me, they kept me there for a week or so of torture and beating and terrible things. But then the United Nations finally found out that I was there. They came and intervened and got me out. And that's how they had a little meeting with the government. The government gave them 48 hours to get me out of the country. And they ran my file to different embassies. And the United States came up with a visa and said, we'll take that guy. And that's how I came here. You know, they got to the airport to give me my package. Oh, I was going to America. Okay, where? I was going to Boise, Idaho. And I got on the plane and started checking on the map, looking for Boise, Idaho, which we can't find on the map. Well, at least if I've never lived there. And when I got to New York, you know, all over the world, nobody knew where it was. And you know, in Ethiopia, in London, and even in New York, people still couldn't tell me where I was from. And then finally, I met this lady from Chicago, you know, from Texas. And this lady looked at my paper and looked at me and said, my boy, you are going to die over there. And here I am, you know, finally I've had those 30 hours of happiness on the flight and eating and enjoying. I said, I'm going freedom. And this woman tells me I was going to die again. You know, a little bit of fear again, how am I going to save myself kicked in. You know, I start contemplating of all, the whole way to there and also what's going to happen next. And see, everything didn't look real. I can't be traveling with a little plastic bag and pointing it out and pass immigration. How is that? Probably these people are going to kill me. And this woman tells me, and I'm like, okay, so how am I going to die? She's like, oh no, actually where you going, those people will kill you if, you know, if you get there, or at least if they kill you first, because you look different from them. They don't like people that look different from them. And then the second one, if they don't kill you before that, you may die from cold, because it's very, very cold. So I asked the lady, I said, so what should I do? And she gave me her card and said, if you get there, give me a call. I live in Texas, and I own a business, and I'll give you a job. You'll love it there. Texas is just like Africa. And I had a little faith again, and I had a little hope. I had my escape plan, escaping from Boise, a place where I may die in the first week. And that's how I came here. You know, as we flew in, I looked, no, I didn't see any sign of, sight of America, because we have a little short buildings here and a lot of mountains. America doesn't look that way. You know, we are expected to see big, tall buildings and a crowded street. And as we would drive through, there was a lot of quiet, nobody walking by foot, only cars and bicycles. And it looks like a little ghost town. Like nobody, it's too much quiet, too much clean, too much neat that there may be something spoofy behind the thing. You can't that way. So I lived with that fear for the first week as they took me and moved me places. And the neighbors went, well, I couldn't see the neighbors. I don't remember if I saw neighbors because nobody was sitting outside like the America that I know from movies and stuff. But, first week, second week, finally, quickly I found my little first job. And I had to ride my bicycle to work. And the winter started, and life changed, and I'm still trying to find myself. I don't have friends, and something horrible happened. Wow, maybe that lady was right at first. But and this brings me to something else. And somebody was communicating with me, talked to me about a little example I gave about a bag and some rocks.
Oh, the rocks, yeah.
Yeah, and let me share that with you guys again, because that's where that started again. And like when we are all born, it's like we're born in a little backpack, right? And as the babies and stuff, your mama carries you, they breastfeed you, they give you everything you want. You just have to make a little sound, and you get everything you want. And we don't realize the hardship of life as we come to know it. And the first year comes and you start walking and you're now bumping your head on things and falling down and losing your teeth and like, oh my God, this thing hurts, but your mom still comes up there and keep you quiet and give you whatever you want to make you feel, don't feel those pain, and we start growing up. But as we grow up, we carry that backpack, and every little things that happen to us during that period of time is like you pick up a rock and drop it in that backpack, so it gets heavier, and you move on. You start going to kindergarten, first grade, kids bully you at school, they make you feel horrible and hurt yourself. It's like you pick a rock and drop it in the backpack. And you keep going. You move on and your father lost his job and you can't get you spend the day without eating your meal. You get hungry, you see the horrible things happen to your family, a rock goes in the backpack. And you move on. Everything that happens to your family that time is like another rock that comes and dropped in there. But because you're a child growing up with your family and the community is so
so strong, you don't realize the weight of that backpack because your family is helping you out to keep it on. So you keep going. And as we grow up and we grow bigger and more horrible things happen to us, and more rocks keep being stuffed in that backpack. And now it's getting heavy. And now you are 18, or maybe now you are running away from war, or maybe you are separated from your family and you have to live for yourself. And you realize now that nobody is there to help you carry that backpack, and it's getting heavy on you. Life gets tougher. And that's how refugees also do. You all have those backpacks, and refugees have that backpack. And I had mine. And I strived with it towards Zimbabwe, and it was full. It started off flooding with rocks. I couldn't keep up with it anymore, because every second it was death that I was cheating, and rocks getting in there. And I was being slowed down that I might be caught up by death any second. But then a little leap of faith came, and the United States gave me that visa, and I came to the United States. And I'm like, oh, finally, this backpack, I maybe end up putting it on the side and forget it. It's not a beautiful life and peace and stuff that we get to know America has. But then, then I got to New York, and this lady said, I'm going to die in Boise. I'm like, oh, the backpack comes to me. And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm going back to Boise with this backpack overflooded. Now that's where I'm going to die. And then I get here, it gets a little better again. I'm like, oh, maybe that lady was wrong. But then as I arrived here, the lady was slightly right, because at work, I started being discriminated by people. I was working in the hotel as a security guard to start with. And people who would come in, they were not friendly. They will call me names. They will call me Afghanistani. Some of them over the phone will call me Mexican because of my accent. Some of them will say they don't want to speak to me, they want to speak to an American. Some co-workers will want to fight me. Some will say they want to take orders from a black man. And all these things keep coming and getting to me. And this backpack is already overflooded, and I can keep more stuff in there because there's no space. The winter came. And nobody told me that bicycles and snow, they don't work together. I didn't have a car. And every time I go to work at night on my bike, I keep falling. And I get to work, I'm so wet and soaked and dirty. And people laugh at me at work. And all these things get back to me, and more rocks get stuffed in there. And I couldn't take it anymore. And then just one morning, I had a nervous breakdown. I collapsed. I don't know what happened. I passed out. Well, all I knew is that I woke up 48 hours later, and I was locked down in a mental hospital. And they told me I was crazy. They were shoving medication on me and forced me to take things that I didn't. They wouldn't let me out. The doors were all blocked. I don't know if any of you have ever visited a mental facility, but those mental hospitals are horrible. They're just like prison, more worse than prison. Because it's so small space, very few people who, most of them have been confused by medication, they can't communicate with you, and it was horrible. So I fought with the health system for a while, and refused to take those medication, and they brought the lawyers and made me to go to court, the police and judges and people. I refused, and after a week of resisting the medication, they made me sign some documentation and paperwork that whatever happened after that, I'll be responsible. If I do something horrible in the world, I'll be responsible, blah, blah, blah. Now, I signed all those, and then I had the terms of, taking counseling and stuff. So when I get out, I started my counseling. And the counseling, well, maybe works for Americans, maybe not to us. We got to find some new strategy of inspiring people who are suffering through, with stress and PTSD and all these kind of things, rather than just sending them to this person who listened to their problem and send them back home. But my counselor came home. All the time she came in the room with a big, huge dog. And she would be petting the dog and playing with the dog, and then looked at me and said, now tell me your story. And I'm like, well, you're paying more attention to that dog than you're paying to me. How am I gonna, So there was no way we could work, because she never came without that dog. And whenever we talked to her, and even those who would have helped, when they told me to do things, they tell me things that I'm already doing. But those are not my problems. I was suffering from the bag, and that bag was on me. It was off my back during the day because I was playing soccer, because I was running, because I was seeing a lot of people. I was in class. Your smile, your happiness feed me and took that bag off and made me forget that I was in trouble. But then when I go home at night, there is nobody in that room with me. Then the bag comes home. My mind starts racing, thinking of all these days, thinking of my family, thinking of everybody I've lost, the torture, the problem, and my chest starts swelling, and I'm crying myself in bed, and I feel like I'm going to die the next hour because I'm running out of breath. And when the morning comes, I feel relieved because I want to get out of that bed and run to somebody and talk to somebody. But they didn't have anything to help me at night. The counselor didn't have that. The doctors didn't have that. They wanted me to take medication to make me sleep longer. And those medications, they make you addicted, they make you fat, they make you crazy, they make you confused. Now they can't get you addicted to this. They gotta find a way to help you. And that's when I started talking to people. And some people I met, and the Americans I met, they told me to go to YMCA, where I started going and met some people there who also helped me a little bit and introduced me to different churches and so forth. And I found my church on the bench, which was ministered by a Congolese guy. And I went there and there were more Africans than Americans, people singing and joyous. And stuff. No, it was fun. And that was awesome during the day, but I still struggle at night. How do I deal with that at night? And I had a chance to speak at the YMCA fundraising event. That was in 2007. 2007, yes. And most people were inspired by my troubles. And that confused me. It's like, this is my problems. I'm suffering. I'm dying from this. And people are inspired by them. Just to hear that when I'm running on a treadmill in the Y, I'm feeling inspired and freed, and but they didn't understand the burden that I still bear at night. But then at church, when I started working with my pastor, he taught me to start writing my problems down. When those thoughts comes at night, get up and start writing them. So now I never slept even before that. So every night those thoughts comes, I'll get up and I'll start writing. I'll be busy writing throughout the night, and my tears will be coming, I'll be screaming, and my chest will be racing, and I'm suffering, I'm struggling, but I'm taking it all out. Because it's in there, it's bad, and I want to say it, but there's nobody to tell it to. So the paper was, and everything goes on paper, and the next morning comes. And I spend the whole night fighting with them on paper and pen and computer and typing. And then the next morning I'm happy again going out there. At night again I'm fighting. A week went by, 2 weeks, and I keep talking to the pastor. The pastor said, no, keep doing that, we're going to burn them after we finished, and maybe you feel free after that. But by keep doing that, I keep feeling that peace, and I'm looking forward to that night so that I can take it out. So it becomes a war between me and what's inside of me to take it out. So I keep typing, and the crying starts slowing down and starts stopping. And now I'm not crying anymore. I'm trying to remember more troubles that I've gone through. I'm trying to remember more things that are torturing me and typing them down, because now I want to get it all out. And it gets so free and great and comfortable when I'm writing them. I'm like, hey, come on now, bring that thought, I forget that name, bring it on. And now all those names are on paper. And after a while, oh my God, I'm feeling free and I can write without crying. Oh, now I'm tired, I try to relax a little bit, oh my God, and I can relax. And when I'm relaxing, the thought comes, but they don't hurt me anymore there. They actually give me a little, wake-up call. I'm like, oh, no, I got to write this down. It becomes a practice, and I feel free. And my past couldn't hurt me anymore. It couldn't hurt me anymore. It becomes my little partner up there. I start seeing them on my side. And then the next time I got called by IRC to go and share a little bit, I'm like, oh, what am I going to share? Oh, I'm going to go and ask this neighbor here. So I went to what I've been writing and said, hey, I want to borrow this story and share it, because it's not in me anymore. Now it's on the side of me. It's part of me. It becomes a friend to me. So I couldn't forget my past. I couldn't fight it off. I couldn't kill it by medication or trying to sleep or drink myself throughout the night so that I'll forget and wake up tomorrow morning and think, no, that couldn't work. I just had to find a way to bring him here and not here, and not let him torture me here. And that worked. And that's how I started my writing. And later on, my first book of poetry, which I didn't have any copy of today, was actually all those thoughts that I've been typing about refugee camps and lives and torture and all those things, put them all together and put them in my first book without editing them and print them out. And people loved them. When they read them, they loved them, were inspired. And I was touched too, because I was like, oh my God. So I can actually do something with my story. And then I looked back, and now, that's why I look to all of you and say, what is the thing you fear the most? People always ask me. And they want to hear me say war, they want to hear me say all this. But the thing I fear the most now is walking in a cemetery. Now, you all fear walking in a cemetery, but the reason we fear walking in the cemetery at night is different. Because most of you fear because you think the ghost will walk up out of there and spoof you up, because you think something scary happened in the cemetery. But the reason I fear walking in a cemetery at night is because of all those stories that people died with. We have so much in our hearts that can change the world and bring the world that we want closer to us. But most of the time we cover ourselves in there, we drink ourselves to keep them in there, we take medication to keep our story in us and not share it with the world. And then we die with these stories. And now that's what I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the stories that are buried in there that we never got to hear. You know, those stories can change the world. Your stories can change the world if we manage to take them out and share rather than drink them off. And my second book of poetry came right after. And now I'm working on my autobiography. You know, and I realized that writing is what gives us strength. Words are more powerful than guns, than anything that we can ever do. And I don't know how much I can stress this to you, but spend your time thinking and looking in the past and looking in your parents' past and everybody. Build a story that you can inspire your children with to find a way that they can live tomorrow. Don't look at it from now on. Look for it in the past. The past inspires the future. The past prepares the future. Yeah? The history, our stories, and all those things is what makes the world better. Yeah, not the craziness that happens around. Create our own environment, create our own little world, and let's live perfectly in there and keep pulling one of these crazy people in there one by one. And we may achieve that peaceful, non-violent world that we all strive for.